Hi, and welcome back to Authentically ADHD. I am your host, Carmen. I'm a late diagnosed ADHDer, an early childhood special educator, and a certified life and performance coach. I created this podcast to help as many ADHDers as I could to learn about your specific ADHD. I know that when I was late diagnosed, I was sent out the door with meds and no help. We have to do a lot of this work on our own, but if we join together in community, we can live more authentically and with more joy in our lives. Are you ready? Let's get started. Hey there, and welcome back to Authentically ADHD. How are you? We are heading into February soon. I mean, can you believe it? Because I can't. It's crazy how fast time goes by. So today we are talking about one of the core symptoms of ADHD, and that is planning and prioritizing. Well, I guess technically that's two core symptoms. So do you ever look at a list having no idea where to start? What's most important? Or the list overwhelms you until you just completely shut down? Whether you struggle with long-term planning, deadlines, and or everyday work and social planning, this episode is for you. I know firsthand that figuring out how to stay on track can feel like climbing a huge mountain with only half the gear and no map. But do not worry, you're not alone. We are in this together, and today we're going to unpack strategies from my newest hyperfixation book, Unapologetically ADHD by Wright and Nikki, Kinzer, the hosts of Take Control ADHD podcast. I love their podcast and I love their book, and I am a worksheet nerd, and it comes with a bunch of planning worksheets that I love. I have a couple freebie planning templates also in the show notes as well. Also, all my people who struggle with time blindness and have been asking me about it, stick around. I've dedicated an entire segment to it. Are you ready? Let's get started. P.S. I didn't tell you, to access all of those planning materials, they are the ones that are free on my Patreon site. That's Authentically ADHD /Patreon. Let's start with why learning to plan and prioritize is so important for the ADHDer. We often struggle with executive functioning, the part of our brain that is responsible for planning, organizing, prioritizing, and following through. When we don't plan intentionally, it's really easy to get stuck in what Nikki and Pete call the spiral of distraction. Feeling lost in your day-to-day life, feeling like your joy is gone. So you're just going through life, letting it happen to you instead of taking the reins in any way. Planning and prioritizing are about giving ourselves a roadmap, a way to navigate life's goals without getting lost in every detour our ADHD brains tend to take. It's key to find the system that works for you. Not only will you be more productive and feel more confident and capable in your everyday life, but Pete and Nikki highlight a key mindset shift that I love. Instead of trying to fix your ADHD or fix your planning, lean into your strengths and create systems that align with the way your brain works. They gently remind us that planning is not about perfection. It's about progress and self-compassion. So, I know we talked a little bit about how ADHD impacts our ability to plan and prioritize, but I want to highlight a few things. We never develop the internal ability to prioritize. We have an interest-based nervous system, and we have lack of self-motivation and self-awareness to reflect and change the things that we do. All of our priorities are screaming at us at the same volume, all at the same time, indicating that they are all at the same level of importance, when in reality, they are not. Now, one of the biggest challenges that can throw a wrench into all of our planning and prioritizing efforts is time blindness. Let's dive into what this looks like and how to combat the negative effects and what it causes. So first of all, what is time blindness? This is a phenomenon that refers to the ADHD brain and its inability to perceive the passing of time. Basically, we don't develop an internal clock. Ever heard of that? That's what it feels like for typically developing brains. Our Our internal clock is either off, broken, or non-existent. That's why an hour feels like 5 minutes and a whole day can feel like just a few hours. This very annoying phenomenon can lead to missed deadlines, chronic lateness, and that awful feeling of always running behind, needing to run through life. This is not sustainable for every day, and it really will cause long-term negative impacts to your health and wellness. Ask me how I know. In their book, Kinzer and Wright explain that time blindness is not a moral failing. It's a neurobiological reality. So, what can we do about it? Hi. Did you know that Patreon helps podcasters like me through listener support? That's right. By joining the Patreon, not only do you get so many of my resources, early release to episodes, and free coaching, you're also supporting the cost of creating the podcast that you love listening to. Let's start building our own ADHD community today in my Patreon. The link is down in the show notes. Hope to see you over there. Okay, now back to the show. So, time blindness. What can we do about it? Number 1, externalize time. Since we don't have an internal sense of time, we need to use tools like timers, clocks in every room, and alarms to create an external sense of time. For example, if you have 30 minutes to work on something, set a timer for 30 minutes and put it where you can see it. Bonus points if it's audible, and double bonus points if you have an alarm telling you when you have 5 minutes to 10 minutes left in work. This keeps us grounded in how much time has actually gone by, and it helps immensely. Number 2, the now and not now trick. Because of our lack of awareness of time, we as ADHDers operate in 2 timelines, now and not now. To bridge this gap, try scheduling out specific times for specific tasks and make it realistic so you can achieve it. For example, instead of saying, I'll call the doctor later, schedule in where there's free time in your day, and dedicate 10 minutes at 2 p.m. or whenever you're free, and set a reminder that will work. This only works if you listen to the reminder, so do whatever you need to do so you won't just wipe it away. Number 3, time anchoring. Time anchoring is great for habit stacking and repetitive tasks to reach a goal. So, what you do is you tie the task to a specific everyday event. For instance, I'll start writing after lunch, or I'll clean the kitchen before I start getting ready for bed. This also helps create a natural flow to your day so it feels less interrupted. And number 4, celebrate the progress and the small wins. Oftentimes, as impulsive, unaware adults with ADHD, we don't stop to celebrate even when our biggest accomplishments are something that we should be proud of. It's always on to the next thing. Nikki and Pete remind us that in their book that celebrating small wins helps build momentum and motivation. So when you finish a task, stick to your schedule and or stop and think before you're being impulsive. Celebrate it in that moment. Give yourself a pat on the back, something to boost that dopamine to keep you motivated to keep going. The next thing I want to touch on is why goal setting and reaching goals we set is so hard. It sounds simple, but it's anything simple for those of us with ADHD. Let's break it down. First, there's the executive functioning connection. Our executive functioning task things are those are the parts of the brain that is responsible for the planning, the organizing, and predicting accurately how much time things are going to take, and prioritizes what needs to come first. Basically, every part of goal setting and achievement are located in the prefrontal cortex and executive functioning. But our executive dysfunction is also out of sync and doesn't work properly. It's not that we can't set goals. Our brains struggle to work out the details and planning the steps to get there. Another reason goal setting is hard is because people with ADHD often live in the moment and we live fast. So we may set the goal and even write down the steps for the goal and even start it. But once the setting the goal gets put away or we stop the reminders for the goal. It's like that favorite jacket. It's out of sight, out of mind, until you come across it again. Here is a big one, the motivation paradox. With ADHD, motivation is not always a choice. It's a chemical reaction in the brain. Dopamine, the neurotransmitter responsible for motivation and the reward feeling, this often is misfired, or our brains eat it all up before our body can even feel it. So our reward loop is basically broken. That's why it's so hard to start tasks and why we have to create our own motivation to finish. You know you should or have to do the thing, but the internal motivation just isn't there. Then we can't forget about the overwhelm of the big picture thinking. People who have ADHD tend to hyper-focus on the end goal, i.e., I want to write a book or run a marathon or I want to get promoted. But breaking down and prioritizing all of the smaller steps to get there feels insurmountable, like a huge pile of laundry. But instead of clothes, it feels like a never-ending pile of tasks, and this often leads to frustration and giving up before we even really get started. Nikki and Pete point out that it almost seems as if planning sufficed our brains in reaching the goal, even though there was no improvement, there was no starting of the goal. Finally, there's the emotional baggage and the shame that comes with all of the past goals that you've tried and failed at, which cause more self-doubt. So when you've been told enough that you're lazy, you're not working hard enough, you're not working up to your potential, hearing that enough times, it's very difficult to believe in yourself enough to try again. Then when things don't go as planned, hello, all or nothing thinking. It becomes really easy to believe, well, I just can't do it. But here's some good news. Just because our goals are harder for those of us with ADHD does not mean it's impossible. With the right tools for you, strategies, and support, we can work with our brains instead of fighting against them all day. Then, when we do, we achieve goals in ways that are so uniquely creative, flexible, and inspiring. In the next and final segment here, I'm going to share some quick actionable tips that hopefully you're able to use, pretty quickly. I just want to make your goals more ADHD friendly and more personalized to you, because you deserve to crush your goals no matter how your brain works. So first, we're going to talk about some of the strategies Nikki and Pete talk about in their book, which I personally find very helpful. Number 1, start with your why. Before jumping into the nitty-gritty of to-do lists, take a step back and ask yourself why the goal even matters to you. Anchoring your planning process into a meaningful why gives you a sense of purpose and motivation, even though this might make you cringe. 2, the power of micro-planning. Nikki and Kinzer emphasize breaking down tasks into small, manageable steps. If write a report feels daunting, try breaking it down into research topic ideas, create an outline, draft the introduction. These smaller steps are easier to tackle and keep you from feeling overwhelmed and give you dopamine along the way. The next one is time blocking. ADHD brains thrive on structure. As much as we hate it, we thrive on it. Time blocking is a simple yet powerful way to plan your day. Set aside specific blocks of time for different tasks, and be sure to include buffer zones for those moments when things don't go as planned. And number 4, using visual aids. Color-coded calendars, sticky notes, or Kanban boards that help you stay organized. These tools will make your priorities more tangible and harder to forget. A few more tools you can use is use external tools like notebooks, and then rely on tools like digital calendars to help remind you. Then it helps your brain remember, and it helps you break your day into manageable blocks of time with specific tasks, using reminders to stay on track. Prioritize with the Big 3 method. Start your day with identifying the 3 most important things you want to accomplish, and focus on these first to avoid getting overwhelmed by a long to-do list. Time block with flexibility. I time block my days every day, but during the day, I move my tasks around. If you have the flexibility to do that, please do that. Limit your planning tools. Using too many planning tools will end up making us quit altogether unless the tools streamline together. You'll spend too much time planning or no time planning at all. Lean into your body's natural rhythms. When you have the energy, pay attention to it, all right? Pay attention to the energy patterns. Tackle demanding tasks during your peak productivity times and reserve less taxing activities for when your energy dips. And create theme days for specific tasks. Assign specific days of the week to focus on certain types of activities or different types of tasks. I have a day dedicated for lesson planning, dedicated for podcasting, and different days for creative work and content creation. Planning and prioritizing with ADHD is not about being perfect. It's about finding what works for you and showing up for yourself with grace and compassion. Remember, it's okay to stumble, and you're going to stumble. Progress isn't linear, and every step forward is worth celebrating. If you haven't already, I highly recommend checking out Unapologetically ADHD by Nikki, Kinzer, and Wright. Their insights have been a game changer for me, and I hope they'll be helpful for you too. Before we wrap up, I want to hear from you. What are your biggest challenges when it comes to planning and prioritizing? Do you have strategies that work for you? Let's keep this conversation going. You can reach me on Instagram or any other social media platform in my link tree in the show notes. Thanks so much for spending your time with me today. If you found this episode helpful, please leave a review, share it with a friend, or subscribe so you never miss an episode. Check my link tree in the show notes and follow me everywhere in case certain apps go away soon. That's all for now. Stay authentic, and we will talk soon.